Hello and welcome again to another Bitcoin news show. We're trying to bring you guys the show here every other Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific, right here on the World Crypto Network. Without further ado, we're going to go right into it tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and talk about Bitcoin, our favorite subject here. The first question is I really wanted to bring up with the panelists. I wanted to hear what your guys' opinion is in light of the debate tonight. The United States presidential debate. I wanted to ask, how do you guys think each president would affect Bitcoin, positive or negative, and why? We'll go first with Tone.
Well, the looks like the stock market seems to like it. The after hours is up a lot in the last couple of hours, so I'm not sure what that means. But I did watch the debate. I came home just in time to watch it. It was interesting. I mean, I think Hillary is the worst possible person that could become president. So let's start off there. I'm not saying Trump is all that great, but again, you're working against Hillary. So well, we'll get to that Bitcoin part in a second and how it affects Bitcoin. But briefly on the debate, Trump wasn't prepared. It was kind of obvious. He could have came out like crushing her. She said some insane things, and Trump just kept repeating the same thing. Look, I like his stand. I like, you lower taxes, you keep your manufacturing in America by lowering taxes. It helps. When Hillary talked about raising the minimum wage, Trump should have said, well, I'm sorry, Hillary wants to raise the minimum wage. Trump could have countered that and said, well, I want to lower the minimum wage because raising the wage takes people out of the workforce and replaces them by robots and all that other stuff. So Trump could have done a lot. Some of the bigger ones, again, he just wasn't prepared on the history. And I mean, I'm not even I wasn't even born here. I think I got to America just before Clinton became president, and even I kind of remember it fairly well at this point. But then again, I also went back and I did some reading. Hillary says something like, well, this is our students are in debt. We need to help our students. And then Trump should have said, yeah, but your husband made a law that student loans can't be discharged in bankruptcy, thus shooting the price of education through the roof, because now you can confiscate people's wages to pay for those loans. So the Clintons are responsible for the fact that students are in such dire situations with student loans. I thought Trump should have expanded on the point when they were growing him on taxes, and then Hillary says, "Well, you didn't pay any federal taxes," and Trump says that's because I'm smart. I know what that means, and then he briefly elaborated. He kind of said it as a joke, but he should have elaborated on it and said it for real. That if I paid you taxes, you would have wasted it and bombed more countries. And he's right again, right? But he's not expanding on these points. Also, when Hillary talks about when the race issue came up, and Hillary talks about how bad it is with a lot of black people being in jail, again, Trump needs to respond, yes, but your husband signed laws that create minimum jail sentences for nonviolent offenses. So again, it's the Clintons that are responsible for this. And I didn't think Trump came prepared at all with any of these counter arguments. So it made him look kind of weak. I mean, he's obviously the better choice, not the ideal choice, but the better choice. So let's talk about how it affects Bitcoin. So it's obvious. I mean, Hillary is just a mess. It'll be complete business as usual with more taxes. She might be more liberal on the drug angle, right? Like you have a better chance of drugs being legalized, like current illicit drugs, like marijuana and some of the other ones. I'm not saying the other ones will be decriminalized, but there is a much higher chance of that happening under Hillary than under Trump. So from that standpoint, for as far as Bitcoin is concerned, legalizing drugs is very bad for Bitcoin because it removes it as being the conduit that is keeping the price up. And right now, I bet the drug market is doing a huge job keeping the price up because all the speculators are leaving. Bitcoin is too boring. It's stuck at 600. Everyone's going to Monero. Everyone is going to back to Ethereum's. I always have to make that a plural now. And people are going to run to, what the hell? What's the thing that Zuko's making, that other disaster?
Zcash.
Zero Zcash, yeah. So people are going to run into that only because it's speculation. God, if Garza wanted to do another coin right now, like Paycoin 2x, people will freaking love it. They wouldn't wait to get their hands on it. For some reason, Steemit just went up in price a little bit the other day. People are just nuts, and they're all leaving Bitcoin. So legalizing drugs will not be very good for Bitcoin at all. But if Clinton gets elected, then you're going to have an amazing rush to Bitcoin to tax evade. Bitcoin hasn't really been used all that much. I mean, I don't know, right? I mean, if you're going to talk about using Bitcoin as a tax evasion strategy, it's not smart. You'll be in jail, faster than Ross Ulbricht, perhaps.
Charlie Shrem.
Or Charlie Shrem, right? So you'll go to jail real quick if you start, a website teaching people how to evade taxes using Bitcoin. But I see a much bigger usage of Bitcoin in that area if Clinton is president. If Trump is president, he's taking that off the table. Again, you get much better tax compliance if you simplify the tax structure. You simplify the tax structure. You make it, you make it so that the opportunity cost to cheat on taxes isn't worth it as much. Also, Trump kept saying he's going to do a better job spending that money, and I actually believe him over any Democrat or even standard Republican that he will put those taxes to better use. I know it's bad to believe a politician, but I don't see Trump as a politician. He's not a politician to me. He's a businessman, whether he's a good businessman or a bad businessman. Because what he's done so far, yes, he's probably had maybe 8 or 9 companies file for bankruptcy. He never filed for bankruptcy himself. Like 8 or 9 companies file for bankruptcy, but he's owned hundreds of companies. Some of them will not be successful, and you're going to liquidate them and you're going to get out of these businesses at the best possible way. And if bankruptcy is the most optimal way to do it, that's exactly what you will do as a businessman. On one more point, Hillary tried to, show him as a racist, I guess. And the best example she came up with is apartment renting in the 70s. Does she even know what the 70s were like in New York? I don't know. I mean, I was I was born in the very, very late 70s, but I mean, I've heard, I've seen 70s was a mess. I wouldn't blame Trump for not renting his apartments to minorities back in the 70s. That's probably what I would have done. That's why it wasn't just him that ended up in a federal lawsuit. It was like every building manager in New York, pretty much. And we can always talk about, I mean, I own an apartment. I want to rent this apartment. Why can't I rent this apartment to whoever I want? Why, again, right? We can question that. If someone comes in to rent an apartment, why can't I choose who I'm renting it to? The government tells me that I have no choice. I can't discriminate against who's renting, but they're living in my apartment. I own this apartment. I need to make a decision whether that person is going to treat my apartment correctly and whether that person is going to pay the rent on time. And they can say whatever they want, but race and religion will always factor into that decision. It's as simple as that. It's reality. You can't step away from reality. So I thought that was low. picking at him for something that he did in 1973. And like Trump said, he was able to leave that case behind without having to admit any guilt, which, probably is not. Banks do that all the time. They always pay a fine and never declare guilt. So I don't know. I thought that the debate it wasn't your normal debate, but it was interesting. I personally enjoyed it. And Hillary held up. I kept looking. I'm also kind of convinced that she does have Parkinson's, which is a rumor on the internet with some interesting videos pointing it all out by like doctors. I personally am starting to get convinced that she does have medical issues. And it's way more important for her to release her medical records than for Trump to release his tax records. So I'll leave it at that. But as far as Bitcoin goes, I think those are the two big issues. I don't know. Maybe I'll come up with something else, but go for it, Gabe.
So far, so far I agree with a lot of the stuff, and I'll comment after Gabriel goes. Go ahead, Gabriel.
Well, I did not watch the debate. I had better things to do. I tried to listen to a little bit on the radio, and I was so disgusted by everything except for their Manhattan accents, which I find interesting from a linguistic and a historical and cultural standpoint. It's quite interesting that we've got two Manhattanites in the race right now. It's quite telling, actually, for the balance of power in the world and how these people get into the office, into the highest office in the land. So I think that's pretty telling. But other than the accents, I couldn't deal with the content. I thought it was just horrendous. These people are, at least Obama had oratory skills. They're so annoying to listen to. They're like little brat children. And, really that's what government is kind of a bully, insecure approach. The left wants to use force to get everybody to stand in line straight and be nice to each other. And if you don't, then you get hit with the stick. And the Republicans are driving around in their big wheels, wanting to drive faster than everybody else and get ahead and gather more leaves into their trunk of their big wheels or something. It's just a ridiculous bullshit, in my opinion. And as such, my answer to the question is that they're both complete authoritarians, and they're both good for Bitcoin because they will fight Bitcoin, and governments fighting Bitcoin will make Bitcoin stronger.
Very good. Very true. Very true. I definitely agree with that last statement very much, of course. We got Blake here in the show. Let's hear from Blake. What do you think on this subject, Blake? Or let me know if you want me to repeat the question.
Oh, no, you're asking about the debates and how they're going to be for Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you can also just comment on the debates in general. I did for a little while. If you have anything like to say about the debate, also.
Well, I heard what you guys said about the debates, and you couldn't be more wrong. I mean, they kicked ass. I was so excited the whole time. I was just like, yes. Like at first I thought they were going to just be really just stupid and talk about principles and shit like that. I mean, arguing logically based on principles isn't what I care about. I care about like who can virtue signal the best when they're up, and then shank their opponent in the neck the best when they're down. And I liked that I saw that. I think one of the first people that I saw really, really, really go for the gold was Hillary. She's like, Trump's going crazy, and I was like, yes, this is what we need. Call Trump crazy. That's awesome. And then Trump going into how much money he had made in personal anecdote in debate. That's always good when people go for anecdote when they're debating somebody for the whole country and becoming president. I was like, yes, anecdotal stuff that nobody else knows. Let's go ahead and talk about that for as long as possible. It did seem like the moderator liked Hillary a little bit, and
it was CNN. It was you.
So I don't think people were surprised that the criminal Clinton News Network was going to do that. And then I heard that Fox Business had to make up for that, so they went like full bore the other way as far as they could possibly go to make up for it with the outliers in both directions. We got even coverage there. But I just thought it was really, really funny when they were like, let's ask about security, like cybersecurity. And then they went to Hillary Clinton. It's like, oh, yeah, let's ask email and Hillary about fucking cybersecurity. This is going to be priceless. Let's ask her, what we should do about this. And she's talking about like, you know, how Putin has personally, like, you know, it's Putin that's poisoning me and he's in charge of the alt-right and he's gonna, you know, hack all this stuff. And it's like, first of all, that's going to piss people off in Russia. Like how do you know this? How is this corroborated? And I feel like even if Trump had said that, she'd have been like, oh, well, that's all privileged, that's classified information, I can't say that. Which then, like, why are you going to bring it up?
Hey, Blake, can I just comment on that real quick? I was about to get back in and talk about that. Well, you said that I texted to my friend because she needs to like write a paper on this, and I said, did Hillary just threaten Russia with like nuclear war?
Yeah, she's been talking so tough.
Right.
Like, too
I mean,
tough.
and first of all, she can't even prove that it was Russia. It probably wasn't. Trump was completely right when he said it could have been a 400-pound guy on his bed. And what Trump should have said was, well, maybe you shouldn't be putting your email on your private server with no security, and then it would be a little harder to hack. So that's another huge point that Trump missed. Should have been like, well, people in the government need to follow protocol, and we need to hire better online security because they can't stop it. You don't know who's hacking. Anybody can. You have to create better defense mechanisms. You can't just go around blaming other countries for hacking your network. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what we're doing. And even if they could prove that it was Russia,
speak for yourself. I'm not doing anything. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Anyway, yeah. So you're right. That's completely insane. She's the last person to comment on cybersecurity.
It's important to give her the last word about cyber security. Like, and even Trump was like, the most important aspects of cyber are security. And I was like, oh man, that sounds like something that like my grandfather would say. So
it was very cringeworthy. When they were both talking about technology, the way they were talking about it, very, very cringeworthy. Just complete, cluelessness. Has no idea what's actually going on. Probably doesn't even know the facts about Snowden. I mean,
both of them were just not arguing in a way that's defensible, that's tenable, that is logical. They were not arguing. They were not talking about principles. They were talking about anecdote and about each other and stuff. And it's like, we need to get like some computer scientists in government. I know it'd be a huge waste of the skill of computer scientists to do that, but just like the level of discourse that these people think is okay when we have all of these logical systems, which should be able to really filter out a lot of this bullshit, is quite terrifying. As like as computer science minded people that, are aware of what objective and non-objective arguing techniques are. It's really frightening to be like, okay, those are the best out of the 318 million people that we have. I mean, a very small fraction that are actually willing to go and take that office because they wouldn't use it for malfeasance, and then it's not worth it. But still, it was pretty sad. I was hoping that either Trump or Hillary would hopefully surprise me by actually arguing a principle and sticking with it. Like when they were talking about crime in impoverished areas, I thought it would have been great if Trump would have been like, hey, I've got a fucking idea. How about we decriminalize all this shit that's clogging up our court systems so that we have more money to actually prosecute people that are doing dangerous crimes and raping and assaulting people. Let's get the people that have, that are doing crimes that actually produce victims. Let's get them into prison. Let's get them harsher terms. And let's get people without victims out of prison and stop wasting money on that, because people that are creating victims, they're a huge problem for society. People that are doing things that don't hurt anybody else, that's just a huge waste of money that's being flushed down the toilet that isn't spent enforcing the law in places where it's really important, where negative rights are actually being violated.
Well, let me ask you guys real quick. Sorry, Tone. Before you answer, I'm gonna let you answer, Tone. But I just want to say also too, don't forget to bring it back around to Bitcoin. Like, I want to know, from Blake basically how each president's going to affect Bitcoin, because Gabriel and Tone already went. But first, Tone, go ahead, reply, and then Gabriel.
Oh no, I was going to say no, but Trump can't say that because he doesn't believe in that, right? Like he will double down on
that's a principle.
Marijuana. Right.
I mean, you're not arguing from principles. It's all sophistry. It's all virtue signaling. It's all, how can I get in this rationalization heavy, already moving system of stuff and just work my way out of controversy instead of trying to actually build an argument from principles. And that was the whole debate on both sides. There was nothing of substance to stand on or be proud of.
I know. I mean, I did like that Trump did stick to his thing. Like, we shouldn't be the policeman of the world. That was
I
like,
did like that.
the Ron Paul kind of thing. So I mean, that's good. I mean, he'll waste money still putting weed smokers away, but at least he won't waste money. Well, I don't know if he will or not. I have no idea, but at least he doesn't want to be the policeman of the world, which is a great chunk of savings. So.
And then the other place that I was concerned about was when he was talking about how to repatriate money and how to get money back in. He was talking about value-added taxes and punishing people if they did certain things that he didn't like to keep them here. And it's like, I don't want to try to keep people here with punishments. I want to offer incentives to get them to come back. But then Hillary kept calling that trickle down. It's like, well, you can't call all free market ideas trickle down and say that they were shit, because Reaganomics created a huge amount of prosperity during the Clinton administration era, which she was happy to take credit for. But then she was all like, well, but that never happened. Reaganomics actually took hold and lasted until 2008, and then trickle down ruined everything. It's like, that's the most fucking revisionist version of history that I've ever heard.
That was bad. No, that was bad.
So as far as economically speaking, I mean, is either one going to be really, really, really much better than the other for Bitcoin? I think they're both going to create a lot of economic squeeze points that are going to be very, very ripe for disruption and for remittance and stuff like that, especially if there's going to be value-added taxes and stuff like that. Like you're talking about the Mexico VAT tax. If he starts like trying to have these complex, tricky systems to get money to stay, because it'll be difficult if it leaves thereafter. I mean, that's not a tenable way to try to manage an economy, and I was really disappointed to hear him say that. I mean, I still think that just because of the way that Germany has gone with Merkel and Australia with Gillard, I don't want Hillary to win because of the whole social justice thing. But I really wanted to see Trump come out with a lot better from core principle economic arguments that could have really decimated Hillary. But at the same time, we're a little bit smarter than the average voter. That might have gone over voters' heads, and he might have sounded arrogant. And so, I can't be absolutist in saying he should have done that for sure. It's just what I would have liked to have seen.
Yeah, no, and on his point of, well, why are we defending Japan? Why are we defending Germany? They either have to pay us to defend themselves. Well, my counter argument to that would be, well, the reason why we're defending Japan is because Japan doesn't have an army. The reason why they don't have an army is because, well, they kind of tried to bomb us during World War II and did. And Germany is the same way, right? So the countries that we were at a serious war with, there's treaties. Like Germany doesn't really have an army. And that was because of the World War II situation. Same thing with Japan. So that's why we're now defending them. But I mean, they're completely different now. But you never get hit twice. I mean, yeah, Germany was World War I and World War II. But
well, you don't get hit twice if the second time America is standing right there like a 750-pound rabid gorilla.
Yeah, but I mean, there was so many special circumstances of Germany, doing their thing in World War I and World War II. And World War II was caused by, just bad sanctions on Germany after World War I. It kind of bred World War II, which is why they were much smarter after World War II.
Well, let me ask Gabriel, do you have anything else to comment on what Blake and Tone are saying?
Hierarchies attract psychotics to their peaks.
Except for me, I'm the exception.
You're not at the peak of a hierarchy, Blake. You're at the bottom, underneath the
I'm on top. I'm on top.
Yeah, so these type of systems will never actually work out. There will never be people who are like, you know what? All we need to do now is just figure out which laws to take off the books. Before let's just spend 10 years taking laws off the books before we add more. And there's never going to be a logical voice that actually has the power to do those things. That's not the way of hierarchies. They grow and grow and grow and grow until they tumble and fall, and then new hierarchies take their place, or networks supersede their entire point. That's my view of the matter.
Cool. I guess I'll spit my little piece real quick. I mean, personally, I think that both. Well, I personally think that
if you're gonna spit it, it's got to rhyme.
It's got to rhyme, y'all. No, I really think that if Trump gets elected, then he's going to end up spooking the markets a lot more than what Hillary would do. And so I really think that, speaking to your economic choke points there, Blake, I think that Trump would actually create a bunch more a lot quicker. And I think that he would actually, if he was in presidency, he would actually raise the price of Bitcoin much faster than Hillary. I think that Hillary would try to suppress that shit as much as she can. And on the drug, comments from Tone, like, I really don't think that either Hillary or Trump would in their presidency 4 or 8 years would still make pot legal yet at the federal level, because basically I think they're gonna the government's gonna sit back and just wait for state by state by state by state to make it legal. And once we have like more than 50% of the states at least, then maybe they'll think about doing something at the federal level. But until then, that's good news for Bitcoin, because there's just no way that, because yeah, as you guys probably know, the government is just making way too much money off of selling drugs to make that stuff legal anytime soon, so at the federal level. So anybody
Well,
else?
there's certain three-letter agencies that self-fund with drug money as well. There are certain agencies which have become a shadow government in and of themselves, and the reason that they're able to do that is because they can get money not from the bureaucracy, not from the people. They can get money from, like, how many CIA planes full of cocaine have crashed? Like, just in the last 2 days, probably like 300. So from those 300 planes that have crashed just over the last 2 days, we know that that the CIA is making back. No, it's not that many planes, but it's been enough. And I mean, for Christ's sake, there's been Hollywood movies about the drug trade that comes back through our three-letter agencies. American Gangster with Denzel Washington, one of the most talented actors alive, just fucking it nails it out of the park. One of the best performances of his career, and it's all about exactly what we're talking about. I mean, it's not like it's a well-kept secret.
At least not since the age of the internet. But go ahead, Tom.
I'm gonna comment real quick on what you said about you're right. Neither one would make drugs legal, even cannabis. But it also depends on, I mean, which people they hire to enforce it, right? I mean, like who's going to be the next FBI director that Trump selects versus who's the next FBI director that Hillary selects. Drugs, they don't have to make a law saying marijuana is now legal. They just have to put the people in charge that, are not going to enforce the law federally that drugs are illegal, right? So it's there's so much leeway there. I don't know how much the president has a direct say in it, but there's definitely leeway. You don't really need a law in the books. It's how that law is enforced.
I don't agree with everything that he says, but Penn Jillette has a great rant where he goes off attacking Obama and his administration specifically for the lack of drug law appeals, and about the number of people that are sitting at home with their lives devastated because a member of their family is in prison because of a plant, because of a crime that didn't hurt anybody else. And it's funny because Penn Jillette specifically holds Obama accountable for going on Jimmy Fallon and chortling about the issue, and thinking that it was funny, because it's not funny. And it's funny because Penn gets really animated, and he goes on Jimmy Fallon, he starts laughing, and it's not a goddamn joke. And I think that type of attitude about the number of people that have had their lives destroyed by victimless crimes is the appropriate attitude to have. People are like, "Are you mad, bro?" And it's like, usually I'm not mad, bro, but about the number of lives and about the amount of value that's destroyed by people that are in prison as political prisoners, yeah, that pisses me off quite a bit. And I think that more people should feel that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think we all agree here on the panel with that logic, for sure. Just too many lives over the years, just too many lives over and over and over again. And unfortunately, it's everybody. It's white people, it's black people, it's Hispanic people. I mean, they're throwing away, kids and telling them to plead guilty so that they won't have to go into juvie, and so they can say that, so they can throw them into the rehab programs, which of course don't do anything, but they get funding. And so yeah, it's a big nasty loop. And
it became so predatory too that they actually decided that they needed to stop the trend towards privatizing more and more and more prisons, when they were finally like, okay, there's actually a conflict of interest here, where actually judges have been indicted relative to selling kids to these different areas because it's such good labor. I mean, at that point, it's like, okay, we've already incentivized the worst possible situation that can come from this. Now it's time for some reforms. And I liked when Trump was talking about reforms relative to deregulation, but I thought it was really clear. I thought it would have been better if he would have made clear what deregulation means. That regulatory capture is the mechanism by which the West is failing. The West is failing because regulatory capture is the method by which giant monopolies subvert and supplant smaller businesses from being able to have anybody. They make regulations that they can afford, but that their competitors that are smaller cannot. And when they fold, they capture all of the business that is no longer able to go somewhere else that's more competitive. And you get less competitiveness, you get less service, you get higher. I mean, monopolies are not good for reasons that everybody understands, but how do monopolies act actually come about if you're going to use just pure logic and pure reason. They don't come about because somebody's a greedy Scrooge McDuck douchebag. They come about because of regulatory capture. And regulatory capture is something that we need to fix. We need to repeal these regulations. And when we pass any new regulations, we need to be aware that they are not law and that there is a great potential for regulations to actually subvert the law, as has been done with the Clean Air and Water Act and with BP spilling all over people's property that had beachfront property, and then they cannot sue to have their property, restored, as they should be able to, because their property was damaged, because the property rights that they should have are actually subverted by the Clean Air and Water Act, which makes it so that oil and gas producers are exempt from environmental regulation, including the destruction of private property for individuals. So there you have a great example of regulation subverting the rule of law, which would have prevented damage to property, when now there is no way to prevent the damage of property. And that is an example of regulation undermining the rule of law. And that's a minor example of it. That's going to hurt individuals, but there's examples of it where massive groups of people are actually hurt by entire bodies lobbying in the interest of the industries that have captured them and actively lobbying against Western interests, against individualism, against private property, against a jury of your peers, habeas corpus, being able to be represented if your property is destroyed. And those kinds of things, that when the very fabric of our society and what should be maintaining order starts to break down, that's a gigantic problem. And how much did we see that talked about tonight? All we heard about was we need to deregulate. And it's such a deeper issue that it's indicative of Twitter was the perfect place to talk about the debates, because it was all sound bites. 140 characters is all you need. And that's sad. How many characters is what I just said? And that's not information that's not important to the precipice that the country is teetering on, whether we can wrench it back to more free markets and maybe decentralized cryptocurrency, or are we going to fall off the cliff to a total regulatory capture and trying to shut down government sectors, trying to nationalize things, and trying to hire people to the federal government to try to get job numbers up, when really everybody knows that getting job numbers up in that way is a fatal mistake for a country.
Well, it's a lot of good points there, Blake, and I think that we're still moving in the right direction, because we stopped the private prison system, right, just recently. So that's definitely a step in the right direction. We got cryptocurrencies ready to go for when the Federal Reserve System inevitably falls, which will inevitably take a lot of power away from the powers that are soon to not be. And so it's looking pretty good. We don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but overall I think we're getting better. Unfortunately, we still have to get through these horrible debates and with these people that just do not represent America. But we'll see where we go.
What do you guys think about the third-party candidates? Because Gary Johnson, I would love to support him, but he just seems like he's such not a libertarian that to thrust him forward to represent libertarianism is a disservice to libertarianism. Now, is that more of a disservice to libertarianism than it is bad to vote for Hillary or Trump? I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I don't want to start a really long discussion here, but why do you think he's not a libertarian? I've spoken at the same conferences as him.
He's not a libertarian because he's asked about drugs and stuff on TV, and he doesn't say legalize it all, including heroin, because that's a libertarian position. He's like, oh, we're going to decide what sounds best for me as an individual in this campaign. It's like, well, that's not the libertarian position. You're not just, virtue signaling and running for, whatever makes you sound best. There is a platform, and you need to support the decisions of that platform. And Gary Johnson doesn't have the balls or brains to do that. I don't know which it is. He wants forced vaccines. He wants you to force to bake the cake. He will scream at you and virtue signal about not calling immigrants illegal. I don't know how much bigger of a social justice warrior you can be than doing stuff like that. But Gary Johnson is not emblematic of libertarian ideas, in my opinion.
I personally like Gary Johnson. I voted for him in the last presidential election. But the thing about the last presidential election, I really couldn't care less if it was going to be Romney or Obama, because it wasn't going to make any difference. This time around, because Hillary is such a bad choice, I have no choice but to vote for Trump this time around. Though normally Gary Johnson would get my vote if there was an actual politician, like a lifelong politician in there, or someone like Romney. I
Like
didn't
my
like
thing,
Romney at all.
like I would have voted for Rand Paul if he would have just been hard line, exactly like his dad was, and not tried to play middle of the field, which God, everybody would call him a cuck and hate him. I would have been a huge fan of Gary Johnson if he had done the same thing. None of them are taking the hard line like Ron Paul did, just expecting to coast off of his achievements, and the party is falling apart more and more and more as more people refuse to take the brave hard line like Ron Paul did, and people are like, well, they don't even really stand up for what they believe in anymore.
I know, but still, like if Gary Johnson was on the Republican ticket, I would vote for him. If Rand Paul was on the Republican ticket,
yeah, me too.
I would vote for him, right? If they were on that ticket, I didn't really care that Rand Paul took that middle stance because I know he. See now it's like we always like we always believe politicians. That they say something and then we know they're not going to do it. They don't do it, and then 4 years later we believe in what they're saying again. But now you're blaming Rand Paul for saying something you know he's not going to do, and you know he's only saying it to get like the stupid people vote because he knows what the right thing is. So I would vote for that, right? Like. Because I know Hillary is only going to do the stupidest possible stuff that she says, and she's not like the best video that I sent to people is called "Candidate Barack Obama Debates President Barack Obama on."
The before and after. Right? Those are great.
Right.
And I mean, I'm terrified of Hillary because she's totally for sale. The 30,000 emails that she deleted are emails about exposure and information and services for sale. That's why those emails had to go. That's why Stone Tier was on Reddit asking how to modify Exchange server data in very specific ways. That is not just a coincidence. Those were emails that were petitioning office for sale, and everybody should know that. People who think that that's just a semantic email issue of small import do not understand the gravity of the position of Secretary of State and handling some of the most classified information that we have designations for. Those 30,000 emails missing is completely, in my mind, a signal of she has sold or agreed to sell or made deals for things which cannot come out because they would be full-blown treason. And I think that it's interesting that Comey said that they did not have enough evidence of intent to indict her, and then not that long after, Stone Tier goes and realizes that he fucked up and asked for help on Reddit and starts deleting his comments as the entire internet is looking in horror. I mean, are they going to be hauled back in front of the FBI for this? I mean, this is the intent that Comey said was not existing. This is bigger than Watergate by a gigantic margin, and almost nobody is talking about it.
I think everything on Wall Street is bigger than Watergate ever was, right? I mean, everything that's going on with it right now, it's the whole damn thing, dude. I mean, high frequency trading, I mean, the whole damn thing, right? I mean, like how many situations right now would you say that we have ongoing right now that are worse than Watergate? Like a dozen?
Well, I mean, high frequency trading, I mean, people can be ideologically against it. And if you're high frequency trading and you have, advantages in certain ways and you're really, really crushing it out, that's not good. That does, some forms of objective harm based on how, much you're deriving advantage.
I mean, they're running the whole market.
That being said, even that, I mean, Hillary Clinton leaking the ambassador's schedule 2 days before our ambassador was killed. I mean, people should be abso-fucking-lutely furious about that. That shit is not cool. And the Secretary of State being anybody but privileged Hillary Rodham Clinton would be absolutely roasted in the court of public opinion over that until people were just shouting for justice. And the fact that that's not happening is scary. I think if Hillary wins, the accountability is dead. There is no executive accountability. If Trump wins, he is so questioned by so many people that don't trust him that the executive branch of government will be held to a level of scrutiny never before seen, and I think it'll actually end up doing some good. I think if Hillary wins, though, she has been held to such little accountability already that it is just going to be the death of executive office accountability for quite some time.
Interesting. Yeah, we're kind of we're at unprecedented territory right now with how many things are being allowed to get away with right now, both in government and Wall Street and with regulatory capture. what you were saying earlier, Blake, because we clearly have that in, you know, just in running in droves right now. But right now, there's nobody doing anything about it. So we'll see what happens. But I guess
I'd say the best advice that I can give for people that are unsure how to feel about the election is research regulatory capture, figure out what that is, and then research liberties versus entitlements, negative rights versus positive rights. There's many different words for them, but once you understand the difference between negative and positive rights, and that positive rights or entitlements, when scaled, must undermine negative rights, which are dear, which is like your right to survival, your right to life, your right not to be stolen from. Those are important issues. Those are the types of issues that our candidates should be debating without fallacy. And the fact that they're not talking about that is not good, is very, very not good. Even in Rome, they would be like, this is bad.
I really don't think we've had a debate, actually debate relevant events in decades, but go ahead, Tony.
Just one quick word on Wall Street. I think this topic has already been, we've been talking about it long enough. One quick word on Wall Street. Again, Trump should have came prepared. You blame the Clintons. They're the ones that got rid of Glass-Steagall, which was a big contributor to this whole mess. And again, you go back to the Clintons. They messed that up. I mean, they're the ones that got rid of that legislation, which came in after the Great Depression because of what happened there.
Yep. So let me just close this topic out with reminding everybody to, you know, vote with your Bitcoin, right? If you're not going to vote in the debate, because, you know, I believe a vote for this at all right now is a vote for a system that I don't want, so I'm probably not going to vote. But I am going to vote with my Bitcoin. I am going to vote every day with my Bitcoin that I use it, and I'm going to continue to vote with it. And if everybody continues to vote with their Bitcoin, then, you know, of course, we can slowly, hopefully grab the reins back from the crazy people that are in office right now. So let's see. Let's move on to the next topic.
People were laughing in chat that I called Rand Paul a cuck, and he uncucked himself pretty recently when he came out. He was on the news or something, and he was just talking about the crimes of Hillary Clinton. And I was like, well, look who's back. So I mean, he didn't permanently cuck himself, but he was pretty cucked for a while.
Yeah. We got the live chat going. So if you guys can join us live, if you want to join us live, we have the chat going on the YouTube, and more than welcome to talk to anybody and answer any questions that you guys might have. So let's see. Going on to the second topic, wanted to talk about Ethereum. Basically, given all the recent attacks on Ethereum at the same time as their developer event. Is this really a sign of Ethereum doubling down on features instead of security, you guys think? Or is it simply a well-timed attack to reduce trust in Ethereum platform from hackers like the previous hacker that hacked the DAO? We'll go with Tone first.
Tone is Bruce Wanker in real life, so don't believe anything he says.
So Ethereum has no security. I have no idea what people are talking about security. The security of Ethereum is like what, 1/200th of the security of Bitcoin, because I keep telling this to people and no one like believes it.
I don't know if you can make a comparison. One is fundamentally secure, the other one's fundamentally insecure.
Right. I mean, the only reason why Ethereum mining ever took off is because there was all these GPU cards that were useless for like Bitcoin mining. They were just sitting there, and then they became all of a sudden useful to mine Ethereum. And Vitalik knows that's not going to last. That's why they're trying to go proof of stake. And when they go proof of stake, it'll have absolutely zero security. It won't even exist.
And it's an app token. It's not even an app coin. It's a token.
They don't know what it is. It's like
I know what it is. It's a token.
I don't even know that it's a token. To be honest, I don't even know that it's a token, Blake. Sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
No, it operates a broken smart contract system. It's an awesome token.
Ethereum is just a complete and utter scam. I don't know how else you can call it. They keep pretending that it's just there as an app coin, but it shouldn't even exist as an app coin. It's being treated like a security. The SEC is going to look at it and they're going to say, well, you created a security. I still expect all of them to get arrested. They're definitely going to regret putting Vitalik in that, 40 under 40. And as far as the attacks on their network, I know they always want to blame Bitcoin maximalists, or it's the Bitcoin people want to drag them down. No, real Bitcoin people know that you're going to implode on your own. We don't need to waste our time, bringing down your chain it's probably someone that literally has nothing better to do, and they're just doing it for fun to mess with you. And if you don't realize that, you're not living in the world of, unicorns and everybody's happy and everyone wants to hug each other, people will attack your chain for fun. They're not going to do it for money. They're going to attack your chain for fun. They'll do it because they can, just for the hell of it. And you're going to see this. And the moment you create anything of value, someone is going to try to hack it for fun, like what happened with the DAO. And they're not ready for this. They don't know what they're doing. It's just complete nonsense. I know they want to blame others, but no, you got to prepare. This is why the Bitcoin core team tests the shit out of their code, because they know people are going to mess with it for fun. Now, when I say Bitcoin people have absolutely no incentive to mess with your app coins, because we know that they're garbage. You flip the situation and it's not the same. Ethereum people have every incentive in the world to mess with Bitcoin, because if they do mess with Bitcoin, then they get to get rich by the speculation on their coin. So they have infinite amounts of incentives to mess with Bitcoin. The problem is they can't. It's kind of expensive. They can't even mine the damn thing. That's why they're mining Ethereum.
Damn proof of work.
Right. Gabriel, what do you think?
It's interesting that Tone mentioned this unicorn land, and I think that is a broader issue with that. It's a vibe I get from Ethereum. Now, this is not particularly objective or scientific, or discursive, you might say. But in my interview with Vinay Gupta, he specifically called out the conflict-averse attitude in the Ethereum executive team, stemming from the top of the pyramid, Vitalik Buterin. And it was his reticence to deal with conflict as a young man. He hasn't grown up yet. He's still a child in his attitudes, and he's living in a wonderland where there are no that everyone can be aligned with the exact same incentives, and then all you have to do is smoke your hopium and everything will be great. And that was exactly what went wrong with the DAO, is that nobody spoke up because there was a culture of avoidance. And
because David Seaman likes to personally attack people who tell the truth about fucking objective economic facts. You mean those reasons?
I mean, he's I don't know if he's an example of that, because he's just such a strange, wild, flying off the handle person. Who knows what's up with him? I'm talking about the actual team and the actual marketing that they did to get actual developers who all have this unicorn idea that is basically the opposite of the cypherpunks. The cypherpunks were paranoid, and they were called paranoid, and people thought that they were delusional, that there's this whole idea of a cyber economy was a pipe dream, which of course it's absolutely has been proved wrong. And they thought, the non-cypherpunks of the late 80s, early 90s thought that these people were dangerous, antisocial people. And it turns out that they weren't, and they were right. And you need to create systems with incentives and risks and attack surfaces in mind from the ground up in order to create a robust anti-fragile system. Ethereum didn't do that, and now we see the result. Now, Bitcoin is not immune to DDoS attacks either. It's just that Ethereum is smaller, and Ethereum has a possibly infinitely larger attack surface, if not infinitely, maybe 1 trillion or 1 billion or 1 million times bigger than Bitcoin. Bitcoin absolutely has an attack surface. You can do lots of things. You can, freaking put an EMP bomb in everywhere in the world, and blow up the internet, or just do a bunch of DDoS attacks, or take over the hardware layer of the internet, which is a huge risk for all communications over the internet. You could take over these you know, the towers and all the big, you know, routing, you know, the undecentralized hardware internet that we have, instead of the dark fiber that we should have gotten. It was all taken over by the telecoms in the early 90s. And so, you know, that Bitcoin has an attack surface too. It's just that Ethereum's is freaking huge. I mean, even in the software layer, it's just massive. They stuck their smart contract code directly in the blockchain, and I've been trying to figure out why they did that, and I think I've figured it out. It was because it makes it easier for developers, and it would be easier to market to developers in order to get programmers to work on their platform and create more tools, and they totally successfully marketed to developers. Unfortunately for them and all the developers that spent all their time creating tools on this system, it's just as important to talk to the economists and computer scientists.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Look at how much financial success Doge had. I mean, it's going to still go to the moon. Their monetary policy isn't too inflationary. They didn't need to talk to an economist. Jackson Palmer's infallible.
Exactly. And Tone just mentioned earlier that Steam is heading up again. So, right, that's just, you know, if it's heading up every 2 weeks on the dot, then hey, you know, that's great. Even though it's down, whatever, 96% off its peak. So, yeah, I mean, this is a natural consequence of a lopsided approach. You might, when you look at all the things that Vitalik has been up to, it's very fishy. I mean, I didn't actually look into his background so much. I was more neutral on Ethereum, going, hey, you know what, these guys are trying something else. They're putting the smart contracts directly in the blockchain. You know, I don't really see the advantage of that. And I do see a lot of risks, but hey, maybe there will be some crazy advantage, and I just don't understand it. But I haven't found it yet, and I'm pretty sure a lot of these tools, and it will be ported to layers on top of Bitcoin, the ones that already haven't been. I mean, it's quite trivial to port a lot of these tools into rootstock or Counterparty. Guys are doing that, you know, it takes them a few hours because these guys have already put in a lot of hard work to make some tools that you know, work with Ethereum. If you don't get the first layer right, everything built on top will just fall right down. Blake knows that because he's right on the bottom there.
Yeah, I'm on the bottom building my castle in a swamp, and it's working great. You're going to see how great this castle is going to be. As soon as I put in the
swamp. That's a great analogy or a metaphor for Ethereum.
You don't know what you're talking about, because I'm going to bring enough stone here that it's going to stop sinking, and then that foundation of sunk stone is going to be amazing. I mean, do I have any way of knowing when the stones are going to stop sinking? I mean, that doesn't matter. I'll just keep bringing more and more and more. I'll just keep scope bloating the shit out of my project, making it so there's more and more and more hype so people buy in. I don't care if the attack surface grows exponentially with everything that I promise. I'm just going to, you know, continually bring in more and more and more stone, and the world's going to get better and better. I mean, that is a pretty good example of you know, any kind of vaporware project, any kind of scope bloat that makes it so that software doesn't come out. And
vapor, ether.
Yeah, vapor, ether, any kind of spectral smoke-like, surreal-ish kind of ghost. Yeah, like vapor. Anything is gonna be good, and that's unfortunately in computer science. Like, if people have come from a traditional education in the space, scope bloat as far as project management in the software space, it's like the #1 thing that you want to make sure that you don't do. You don't go into your sprints in agile iterative project management development and go, hey, you know, our 2-week sprint has a whole bunch of important business deliverables, but you know, fuck it, let's get a whole completely new path going in here that's going to go all the way down to the base layer and fuck that up with a whole bunch of shit that's going to be like that. Like, you cannot run a big live material transfer system like dollars or Bitcoin or Ethereum without the kind of hyper lean focus that that other material transfer networks have. And Bitcoin transcended elemental and limit, like, Bitcoin transcended elemental limitations on fault tolerance. Fault tolerance and the problems therein were fundamentally changed by the research that Satoshi did and by the Bitcoin system. I mean, what problems on a par with that has Ethereum solved to a point which could be implemented in a useful and robust project? As far as I know, no problem has been solved. Theoretically, they are making lots of big strides, and I don't mean to discount the academic value of people working together trying to solve the problems in Ethereum. That has value. But to try to conflate that with the value of a token which operates a smart contract network, which is deeply flawed, and then telling people to the moon and having David Seaman go off emotionally on people who try to point this out to people, I think that's a dangerous set of circumstances. And I think that when you guys say that there's a lot of value in attacking Bitcoin as Ethereum fans, because it's really, really easy to milk Bitcoin out of Bitcoin, much more so than it is to get somebody to convert fiat to Ethereum. Bitcoin is the giant oak tree base stem center of all of the chains, and everything else coming off of it is like roots. You get into Bitcoin, and then you can buy altcoins, including Ethereum. That's why it's important for people to detract from Bitcoin, which is, I think, why some Bitcoiners have a sour taste about different alts, but not all of them are entirely useless. I think that the implementation of I actually caught a lot of flack earlier on social media for this today. Somebody unfollowed me, Bitcoin error log, because I said that I'm buying some Ripple on a 6-month horizon. And he asked me why. And I said, well, the big banks are talking about doing away with some of their SWIFT implementation to try to take away direct access to material funds by having Ripple implemented. So instead of having the Active Directory team having to go through forts and make sure that only the people that are supposed to have access to different accounting units and glides and stuff like that do, they can separate out some of the key information. And while that wouldn't have stopped the Bank of America hack where their software auth servers were compromised, it wouldn't have stopped it, but it would have prevented any of those attackers from being able to do material funds transfers or to drain accounts. And that is a big step forward. So I'm not thinking that XRP or that Ripple is going to outperform Bitcoin by any means. I don't think that anybody should put all of their money in XRP. But if you understand diversification and investing on at least 6 months horizons, probably even longer, on things that are actually logically tenable, that's something that that I don't think that anybody should be discouraging.
I just want to comment real quick. Someone in the chat group asked, has anyone here used Ethereum? And my answer is, what would I use it for? Well, I still don't know what a use case is that is actually like useful, right? I cannot, and most of the time I've used Bitcoin for something that I had to use Bitcoin for.
I've used it and installed it and played with it in the past, but I've not been able to sync the chain recently. The chain does not sync for me anymore. There's massive problems with it. Getting it up and running with the whole chain loaded now is, as far as I know, a difficult thing unless I'm mistaken.
The reason why I bought Bitcoin to begin with, when was this? Like 2013. I got it for 2 reasons. I got one for speculative reasons, because I thought it would be, this is during like the Cyprus bank shutdown. I had no idea if the entire financial system was going to collapse. So I bought it for speculation, and I also wanted to gamble. So that was another reason for me to buy it. I've never used the darknet markets. There's nothing there that I need. So I've never used it for that. I haven't been crypto lockered. I haven't used it for that. I don't really make much money anymore, so tax evasion isn't really a use case. I don't really have any use cases right now other than, so unless you bring me a case that Ethereum is useful for something, which it isn't, and then the other case is Ethereum is a good speculation tool. To me, it's not. To me, the security of Ethereum is non-existent, which is why I'll stick to Bitcoin. It might be a better speculative tool is if you think, one Ethereum is going to go from $20 to $100, but I still believe it's going to go to 0. I never believed Bitcoin would eventually go to 0. Otherwise, I would have never bought Bitcoin. I did expect Bitcoin to keep going up. I will not be ever buying Ethereum because I don't believe Ethereum is going to keep going up. I think it's going to 0.
Well,
or whatever Paycoin is. Whatever the price of Paycoin is today, and whatever the price of Aurora coin is today, you average out Paycoin and Aurora coin, and soon just add Steem it in there. You average those 3 out, and that's where Ethereum will be.
Yeah. I think Andreas said pretty much that chains don't actually die unless there's a fundamental flaw that actually breaks the blockchain. So it'll probably, like Tone said, be worth very little value, but still be around. I just want to say a couple things too, because basically I tweeted out earlier today that Ripple and other top coins will be at least double what they are next year, because the way that what's happening, what I'm observing here is the world is going into crypto slowly but surely. The top 5 coins that had to do with security all doubled in the last 90 days. And there's many other coins that are doubling from just a year ago. And then of course we look at Ethereum, a year and a half ago that was $1. So we're seeing tons more of money pour into crypto. And so I think that Bitcoin will be at least $1,000 next year. And if that's the case, then all of these coins that are sitting at like the top 5 coins that are sitting at like $5 or $10, they're all going to be $20. So if Ethereum is still around, it's probably going to be $20. If Ripple is still around, it's probably going to be at least 4x, possibly 8x what it is now, because the money is going to come, because people have nowhere else to put it. They're seeing this crumble every year that goes by, that Bitcoin still that survives. There's going to be just that much more money poured into crypto, and I'm seeing it with all of these coins just going up and up and up. And it's really interesting to watch these markets like Deutsche Bank and all of these other central banks crush and die, just as we said they would, as more and more money flows into crypto as the crypto market continues to rise. So I see no problem with Blake, with you investing in Ripple for 6 months, because in 6 months it's going to be up. Guarantee it. Like all of the crypto will be up.
It's not even really
No,
like
wait,
an investment.
wait.
It's a diversification move. It's not like I shouldn't even call it like an investment. It's like 60K XRP on a 6-month horizon.
Go ahead, Tom.
Vortex. So to play devil's advocate on everything you said, if Poloniex exit scams or get shut down, time as who's the next biggest competitor to Poloniex, right? Well, what if those two go down? No matter what, it's still 95% of the value of those coins is speculation. And like we talked about earlier, maybe early on, 95% of Bitcoin was also speculation. But right now, speculators are leaving Bitcoin because they think it's useless because it's so stable. To guess, I would say over 50% of Bitcoin is no longer speculation usage, while for everything else it's like between 95 and 99.9999% speculation.
That's correct, but that's also what's going to drive up the prices, is the speculation. As Bitcoin rises and more use cases come online for Bitcoin, and more use cases come online for the secondary cryptos, because obviously Bitcoin can't do everything, and we don't want Bitcoin to do everything. Or else we increase the attack surface, right? So we want other coins to do other things, and they will rise as Bitcoin rises, right? John?
But again, they will rise on speculative issues, and then as each one of these coins, has a fork and it becomes a disaster, that money is going to rush back into the stability of Bitcoin. I mean, I think the hype of Anand coins is about to come to an end. I think zero cash will be the nail in that coffin. I think when that implodes, it'll just signify that this stuff is nonsense.
Well,
Bitcoin is anonymous enough.
Let me ask everybody in the panel then real quick this, just to see what people think. First, we'll go with Gabriel and then Blake. I mean, because we kind of talked about it a little bit, but Gabriel, I mean, what do you think on this particular point? I mean, do you think for at least the next year or two, I mean, all of these major altcoins like Ripple and Monero, a few others, DigixDAO, there's a bunch that will more than likely go up if they don't crash, right, over the next couple of years as Bitcoin rises?
I have no idea. The altcoin market is so volatile. It's so totally new. And I just really have no clue where it's going. I mean, it's just so crazy to me that there's, I mean, the idea of this speculation, I think it's interesting because there wasn't a way to speculate on this small of a scale before, on these type of random projects, random tech projects. This is a totally new type of asset that can go really to tiny values. You have traders, hobby traders out there that are throwing around 5 and 10 cents on the internet. This is a huge development, and it's a totally new market that I had, that you could never have proved existed because the opportunity didn't exist. So we're in the situation where these speculators that have $60 or $11 to throw into some Bitcoin, and then get onto this on-ramp online where they can trade, and maybe even if they're really good at it, maybe they can make a huge amount of profit off of that. Maybe they can make 600 out of their $8 or whatever it is. I mean, this is so new, and and most of these coins have including Ethereum, don't yet have any uses whatsoever. It's completely speculative. Bitcoin is, say, only 95% or only 80% speculative. These other coins are 100%. Nobody's using, almost all of these. So, I mean, I think just as a speculatory, strange vehicle, they could continue, but we may see extremely fast turnovers where, the leading coins of today are all completely destroyed, and there's new ones popping up in their place promising other things. And I think that's going to continue for at least another 10 years while Bitcoin gobbles up the most useful parts of all these things, until Bitcoin has really, scaling, privacy, confidentiality, and fungibility. These big challenges, DDoS resistance, spam resistance. These type of big challenges that really stand in the way of Bitcoin's, that might be considered to stand in the way of Bitcoin's long-term success, get addressed and merged into Bitcoin. So I think it's just a random, crazy speculation thing, and I don't agree that we're necessarily going to see the coins of today be worth more tomorrow. We could see a total turnover where there's different ones, but I do believe that the alt market will continue for a few years yet, at least, if only just as a gambling platform. Sort of, if you think about it, what these altcoins are is an app coin futures market. It's really, or an app coin prediction market. So it's sort of a limited subset of what prediction markets, because you'll be able to do more derivatives on top of all these crypto assets with decentralized prediction markets of the future. For example, Paul Storz's Hive Mind, you'll be able to not only buy, say, a popcorn coin, with actual Bitcoin, but you could also just put a bet on Hive Mind that popcorn coin's price will go up or down. So I mean, it's just these brand new, totally uncontrollable prediction. It's a limited subset of prediction markets right now that we're seeing, and I think that does have a future, although the size of that market might expand and contract depending on circumstances.
Okay. Well, before we go to,
I have to.
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
Night.
Oh, okay. Well, appreciate it, Tom.
It's getting late
Thanks.
here in New York, and the next two topics we covered on Friday on the Bitcoin group. So check me out there for my opinions on those.
I hope to
join
see you Friday. I hope to be back to the group this Friday, Tone.
Nice.
That'd be awesome.
Me too.
I'll to it. It's getting late here on the East Coast, so have fun.
Always
Cool,
a pleasure.
thanks,
Good talking.
Thanks, Tom. So yeah, so just real quick, on Gabriel's points, Blake, before we go to you, I just think that right where we are now, though of course we all know we're in the very, very beginning, there are going to be a few coins that are going, in my opinion, to last a few more years. Now I don't know which ones those are, but there's got to be a couple in the top 10 right now that will at least last another 2 years, because Bitcoin, again, can't do everything, and it certainly can't do everything in the next 2 years. I think that there's going to be all sorts of use cases for different coins that, of course, all have to be backed by Bitcoin and all have to be tradable back into Bitcoin. But there's all sorts of these crazy things out there that could very well take off, but at least be in the speculation market for the next couple of years, because again, like there's science being done, with the Digix DAO, with Ethereum, with even other coins, though of course we don't think that they'll be there for forever. There's got to be at least a couple that are going to be there for the short to midterm, which is at least possibly 3 to 5 years, because cryptocurrency is here to stay, right? We know that. Now it's just a matter of, okay, which ones are going to stay. So go ahead, Blake. What do you think?
Well, I said I was going to blast nuts in this talk. Now that Tone is gone, I can really go ham.
Yeah.
So somebody in chat is talking about let's talk about side chains to solve block size issue. Well, I mean, segregated witness or separation of signatures is going to allow for basically hooks and then the fixing of data, which it's possible to malleable the transaction data on the back end. So basically, there's a pretty big fix with segregated witness, and that's probably the best place to explore scaling issue solutions, not by jumping back to Hearn on bended knee and being like, oh, can you help rescue our implementations? We don't know what's going on. So segregated witness, if you haven't looked into it, I believe that Andreas does a pretty good talk about it on Let's Talk Bitcoin, and just the number of problems that are solved with the implementation of segregated witness and how close they are to the infrastructure is really exciting. And in terms of development, that just seems like a much better way to go than arbitrarily increasing block size or decreasing block propagation time. I mean, a 10-minute block propagation time is not an accident. There are reasons why the way that the internet and network relays are built out. And if roughly one CPU is one vote, and the entire world is the playground for a currency, a 10-minute block time is very important. So when people are like, well, we got to compete with Swift and scale the network without understanding what it does, those are dangerous people, and their questions can be answered and you can engage with them and speak with them. But if they're out just with a loud voice and a big audience like Roger Ver tends to be, that ends up creating a lot of people that are going out maybe like, imagine if you were not educated by real information, but just with memes. Like real education would be like having a nice, well-balanced breakfast of fruit and oatmeal, and you go out with your well-reasoned arguments and you make arguments from principles. Whereas if you didn't, have fruit and, good stuff to eat and good knowledge, I mean, if you had memes are like cocaine. You just get horsed up on cocaine, you get all this information that may or may not be factual, and you just go out and you just start freaking out at people. And I think that the big block debate has people that are making rational arguments that are trying to move it forward, and there's people that are all hopped up on the cocaine memes and really want to push something through, regardless of if it kills the goose that lays golden eggs. So I think that it doesn't get much more short-sighted than action bias directly in support of raw greed. So I think the people that advocate for changing the network in ways that, if you look at them semantically, would do harm, are people that perhaps shouldn't be as respected as they are anymore.
So then, Blake, I don't think you actually. That's all good. I don't think you actually answered my question.
What was your question? I went with the chat question. I totally was just like, what's chat talking about?
Sorry. Sorry. So my question was, I asked Gabriel as well. Basically, my question was to argument against Tone, basically, and kind of against Gabriel too. Basically, where my argument is that there's going to be at least a few of these coins that are in the top 10 that are going to last a few years, because this is the crypto world. We are moving into the cryptocurrency world. Bitcoin can't do everything, and we don't want Bitcoin to do everything because that increases attack surface. So won't a few of these coins at least last the short to midterm, like 3 to 5 years? A couple of these, obviously most of them are going to go to crap, right? We know that. But in the top 10, there's got to be some that are doing some good science, right?
Well, I mean, it's tough. If you know a lot about Bitcoin, I believe that you look at the white paper and the implementation of Bitcoin as pretty much the pinnacle implementation that we have possible right now. A lot of changes to that situation are going to, you'll be hard pressed to argue that they're not negative progress. We learned a lot from eGold. We learned a lot from past experiments when we were going into and creating Bitcoin. So a lot of the altcoins are like, hey, Bitcoin over here, it's a digital storage of value gold mining operation. We got these diamond titanium shovels. They're pretty good. And people are like, oh, no, hold on. We got these shovels made of fecal material, and they're way better than your diamond shovels. And it's like, yeah, that's objectively not true. There's a lot of things that make it so that fecal material isn't as good at hashing as these diamond tipped shovels. So when people are like, oh, well, we have this new better Bitcoin where it's like, it's very highly mutable, but it's immutable for everybody else, but we can change it. It's like, well, that's a shitty database. You've made a database that has, you know, pretty good security in terms of who can modify it and who can't. But I mean, it's going to have shitty pickup time and refresh times. It's going to be basically the shittiest database you could possibly have, because what you did is the equivalent to being like, oh, let's make a tricycle and let's make it real cool. So we'll take all the parts of a tank, a rhino tank, and we'll make them into a tricycle because that'll make the kid really safe. Well, you know, the kid can't move it. It won't even, you know, I mean, that's not a very good design or implementation for a Bitcoin. So which of these other chains are going to be tenable and are going to, you know, accompany it? I mean, people are like, oh, well, you know, at least Monero, they seem to be truthful about the fact that there's not a huge use case for it. And so that amount of truth is going to make it go up a whole lot. But is that tenable long term? I mean, is that really going to lead to versions of Monero, which are really, really important and the Bitcoin core team is trying to implement into future implementations? You know, I don't know, probably not. Which chains are going to stick around on a 5-year horizon? I mean, even if I had some really, really distant inkling or guess in my head, it probably wouldn't be very useful for the community for me to take a wild stab in the dark about what that might be. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't want to name any names specific. You know, like I'm just thinking that there's just got to be some. Yeah, I know. I mean, 5 years is a long time in the crypto world. Like we understand that. You know, I guess I meant the mid short term, which is 2 to 3 years, because eventually, obviously, Bitcoin, you know, will be able to do everything at some point. I mean, we're going to throw the Lightning Network on, we're going to throw layers above it, and it'll be like the TCP/IP, where we just kind of throw everything on top of it and have the base layer. But that's fine too. But I'm just.
OneCoin is still going to be around. Definitely, OneCoin will be around. What is that? Like Hashcash? Hashcash will be around for sure. Lucky 7 coin. Sure. Lucky 7 coin you want to buy on a 5-year horizon. That's going to be a good one.
And yeah, that's for sure. Those are some good picks. Everybody needs to buy some OneCoin. Okay.
What is Ruha coin? Ruha coin equals all the benefits of OneCoin with double the doubling. Double the doubling.
Well. What was the coin that Theo was pushing? Pepe coin? I forget.
Me and Theo had an idea for a pump coin or pump and dump coin, but the entire monetary policy is based around social events where everybody gets together and then pumps it. But we decided that allowing a huge whale to come and like fuck over all these people that we got interested in pump coin might not be the most moral thing to do, so we decided, you know, we'll leave coin.
That makes sense. All right, well, I think we've got that topic down. We can move on to the last one.
Altcoins are applications. You are buying a service.
Exactly. Altcoins are risky, and we don't advise buying like a ton of altcoins. Like that's not probably a good idea.
If you believe that altcoins are applications that you're buying a service, you better be goddamn sure that it works very well for exactly what they say it's going to work for before you look at it from that kind of a view. Altcoins are not applications that you're buying in kind of a software as a service model. That's a very, very dangerous
That's a good point. That's a good point, Blake, because, you know, like one of the dead giveaways for a lot of these altcoins, like Ethereum, even Ethereum is a good example, is they claim to just do everything. I mean, everything under the sun. I mean, you want smart contracts, you want governance, you want, you know, whatever the hell it is, like they do it. And that's what's really telling a lot of these altcoins on their home pages, especially Ethereum. They just kind of claim to do it all, and then, you know, we see Ethereum get DDoSed like 3 or 4 times in the last couple of weeks, and it's just continuing with no end in sight. Meanwhile, they're trying to do this conference and talk about all these new features.
Well, it's funny because to a normal person, something saying that they can do it all sounds really, really good. But to a computer scientist or an engineer, they're like, I can do it all sounds exactly like scope bloat. That's a huge red flag. That's something that people should be looking into and looking at how the attack vectors are multiplying exponentially every second that they adopt and keep that fucking, you know, we can do everything mentality. That is a very, very, very dangerous mentality to have when you're dealing with projects that should lend themselves to Boolean research and progress, and not a whole bunch of assumptions and, you know, throwing Occam's razor in the trash.
Yeah, for sure. I think that everybody here on the WCN, I mean, has advocated that with the more features you try to throw on the blockchain, the more attack surface you get. And this is just being proved over and over again with the DAO and just with all these other crap coins that have come and gone. You know, we see it over and over again. And now we're gonna see Zcash launch something, and it's crazy how many actual crowd sales there are per day for these coins. I mean, people, they just love to gamble. Apparently, it's just ridiculous. But of course, we always advise that you stay in Bitcoin. if you want to speculate, go ahead, but realize that Bitcoin is the one that's going to be around for a long time. And of course, we can't even guarantee that, but there's going to be something that's either Bitcoin or like Bitcoin around, because we've opened Pandora's box, and we're not turning back. That's for sure. We want to create an independent economic society aside from the government separation of money and state.
I'd say if you're going to speculate, go on to Poloniex or somewhere like that. Look at the asks bid ratios, learn how it works, learn what's going on, get enough information to just put, some micro investments in, and then try to see how trading works. Because even if you don't want to trade altcoins, looking at different markets and realizing how they are, or if the order books are really, really thin and kind of fake, or if the order books are really, really thick and you could really make lots of money, you don't have to convert your money out of Bitcoin on a large scale, but just learning about market economics through a medium through which you have material stake in the game. You actually have money at risk, even if it's only a few cents. It is so much easier to learn about, asks and bids and anything that you're not sure about as far as leverage or shorting or margins. The best way to work to learn is autodidactism or doing it yourself. So
Man,
I would do that. And then if you're going to invest in something, try to invest in something not hyper ephemerally. Try to invest in something that you think actually has some kind of a feature that is useful in some way, shape, or form. Perhaps Ripple isn't a good analogy right now, but in the future, if things come out which you think are actually going to be useful, try to invest or diversify an amount of money commensurate with how much money you either want the AppCoin developers to have because you like the AppCoin, or the amount of money that you want to risk because you think that based on historical patterns it's going to go up. But ideologically, ideologically investing in lots of alts is extremely dangerous, and it's something that you really want to be careful of.
For sure. I agree, definitely, Blake. Lots of good points in there. And I think the best point that I liked was the education factor. Bitcoin is just been an amazing educational tool for the whole world, and continues to be and will continue to be on just everything. Because I think most people that got into Bitcoin didn't, in the beginning weren't quite aware of economics or the Federal Reserve or how things work. And in addition to just learning basic economics, like you talked about, and basic trading strategies and things like that, I mean, Bitcoin is just going to rip through this world and educate everybody. I think, a lot like the internet did, where people didn't realize that, hey, can be a broadcaster. The amount of information that we're losing here by only centralizing it is so vast and so great that we didn't even really understand it until the internet came along and showed us another path. And now Bitcoin is showing us another path, and I think that's just going to be hugely educational. Hugely educational. All right, cool. So let's see, do you guys got time for one more topic? Because we were going to do two more topics, but what about you, Gabriel?
I don't think that I do, actually. It's starting to get pretty late.
Yeah,
Show's been an hour
pretty late already. Yeah, we can end it here. Because the other two topics again.
I want to talk about Pokemon. We never get to fucking talk about Pokemon.
Oh, we're talking about Pokemon. Yeah, that's on the schedule. I wasn't talking. Yeah, I wasn't referring to that. So there's one called an Octograph, and it's going to spawn an altcoin. And if you find it, then you get to mine the Genesis block.
That would be hilarious.
I told the lady that I was going to mine her Genesis block.
Oh, maybe we should leave it there.
All right, for sure. Yeah. The other two topics that I had were already covered on the Bitcoin group anyway, so that's good. Very, very cool. So thanks again, guys, so much. Thanks to our guest Tone, and I tried to get Julian in here too, but I couldn't get the link right. So next time we'll have him.
Can I do a small plug really quick?
Oh yeah, no, I give everybody a chance to do a plug one by one.
I'd like to plug my new altcoin project. It's called the Triple H Removal Surface Helicopter Fuel Token, and I hope that everybody will buy just as much as possible. Yeah, I already just put my whole savings into it.
Helicopter fuel tokens is the future.
Yeah, the Triple H physical removal system, so to speak.
Yeah, well, that whole I'm actually the security researcher who looked over the code base for it, and it is watertight, people.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys, so much for joining us. Thanks to everybody in the chat. We really love watching you guys' reactions and then chatting with you. It's really great. Join us again, you guys, every other Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be right here on the World Crypto Network, 8 p.m. Pacific. And if we really allow anybody to try to join in, if you guys want to join in for the first time, or if you just have questions, please hit us up in the chat. Please DM me on Twitter. and we'd be more than happy to have you on. So, Gabriel, where can we find you?
Twitter, Gabriel at Gabriel Divine.
Awesome. Future Rant. He's got he did just recently did an awesome interview, and he hopefully has some more on the way. Future Rant podcast. Very cool. And then Blake, where can we find you, man?
You can find me at the library watching Hans Hermann Hope videos on YouTube.
That sounds awesome. I will join you. You will find me there as well.
It's pronounced Hope.
Hope. I don't see. I mean, I don't. He sounds like Scrooge McDuck to me. So I love listening to his voice. And then the more that you listen to it, the more you're like, so to speak, this is what we need, so to speak.
Epic. Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys, for joining us. We'll see you again, hopefully 2 weeks from now on the World Crypto Network. And until then, just keep talking Bitcoin.
Bye.
Bye bye.